All right, guys, let's talk irrigation. Now, I have one of these timers. I have a few of these timers. Now, this is made by Orbit. These are battery power generated. These timers effectively tell your water when to turn on and off. There's different sizes, pretty much straightforward, right? And guys, make sure you're adding Teflon tape. You got to think about the direction you're going to turn your piping, right? So you don't want it to come undone going the opposite way than what you're turning. But Teflon tape is a must. This helps with leaking and fills those gaps, makes a tight seal. Just like that. I effectively have a backflow regulator connected to a pressure regulator connected to a quick disconnect. I'm going to be changing this anyway, but I just wanted to check and see how this worked, if it leaked or not. And it does, but let's get this changed correctly. Alright, this is the quick connect. I want to be able to change out hoses and things. Make sure that you have your gaskets in place. If you have a leak, this is probably messed up. Alright, so I went ahead and got a water filter. Our water kind of sucks here, but this is what we're looking like on one end. Again, make sure you're Teflon taping and gasketing correctly. So this should go through the filter and then it'll be split two ways to different zones of the garden. I'm going to have a heat loving side and then a more shaded side. Rather than running the 1/2 tubing directly over here, I have dogs, so I'm going to use a hose. This would be more durable. And always check your work. Be ashamed to start doing something on the other end and this side isn't working. I just want to make sure I don't have any leaks. Looks like for the most part we are okay. And this is what we're looking at closer in. Plan ahead. Y splitters come in many different sizes. If you plan to have more plants in different areas, maybe get the bigger Y split. Maybe you only have 2 zones and you only need 2. But this should work nicely. Well, I decided to get 4 instead of 2. So there's effectively 2 different sizes for the hose. You got the 1/2 inch. This is your main hose. And these are the 1/2 inch adapters to connect this 1/2 inch tubing to the actual hose, or it could connect directly to the faucet, whichever way you want to do it. Make sure you read the directions, as there are so many different ones of these and they could be applied different ways based on what type they are. And we're all set on this end. Alright, so if you need me to go any deeper detail, let me know in the comments, but this is generally what it looks like. You have the auto, set clock, set time, etc. And you pretty much just turn it to each one of these dials, and then on the screen you can set it with the up or down. Right now there's also a manual button on here. I'm just going to test it and see if it works. This will manually let you water for, it comes up as 10 minutes, but you can change that with the up or down button. Checking for leaks on both ends. I like to use Quick Connect so I can remove things when I need to without having to take off all the tape and everything else. If I want to use this as just a hose, I can use it as that. And essentially you just have to turn it to whichever knob you want the option for. So if you turn it to set clock, you can set the clock using the plus or minus arrows. Same with each duration. What I like to do on this end is get some electrical tape. It's super not as sticky as like duct tape, and cover the screen. Keeps those numbers from fading. I may want to put some cardboard or something underneath this so that I don't get any residue on the numbers. But for right now I'm having it this way. Some tape or some cardboard, something so that the screen doesn't get any sticky on it, but that's why I'm using this sort of tape. So the downside to these is that the lowest time frame you can go is 12 hours. So by having 2 sides, I could effectively make that 6 hours a piece. So effectively, pots could have X amount of time being watered 4 times a day. These are super reliable. It just sucks in some cases that you can only have 12 hours. Now you want to make sure you're adding your pressure regulators after the timer and not before. So we also have the 1/4 inch tubing. This will go directly into this 1/2 inch tubing. And you can have these to put around your 1/4 inch tubing to hold your drip emitters in place. As you can see, the tubing will fit into this little crevice, and then you just stake this into your pots or the ground. Now this is what the emitters look like. You can put these directly into the 1/2 inch tubing or into the 1/4 inch tubing at the end. Make sure you stick with the brand for color coordination. Nothing sucks worse than having a 5-gallon and a 2-gallon that are both red. I would also suggest these for stoppers. With pots, you move them around a lot. I can turn off water to a specific area with this. They have in 1/4 size, 1/2 inch size, depending on what your needs are. Now, drip irrigation comes in different sizes, like I was saying. We got 1 gallon, 2 gallon, 5 gallon. This is per hour. And I don't like to waste water, so I think about how long does it take to fill these up, and I kind of figure out a calculation. The first thing I do is put a drip on a pot, turn it on, and see how long it takes for the water to come out the bottom. So then I calculate, okay, this is a 5 gallon per hour drip on a 20-gallon pot or a 5-gallon pot. So now I know, based on those calculations, what I need to do for each individual pot. Since I make my own soil, that's a consistent, so I know consistently this is what it should cost per each pot. And as you saw, I generally do 2 per pot, depending, 2 to 3. You want to make sure both sides are getting watered equally. And then with having mulch on top, it's going to hold that water in. So the thing with this soil that I make, it kind of wicks. You ever seen Plinko? I'm probably dating myself, aging myself. But on The Price is Right, effectively the water goes side to side versus going straight down. Now you're going to use these to poke directly into your 1/2 inch tubing. These connect your 1/4 to your 1/2, and then use a tool like this to push it into that 1/2 inch tubing. This side goes into the 1/4 inch. But first thing, you put it into your little tool. What you do is you put it in your little tool like this, and then you can just press it into your 1/4 or 1/2 inch tubing. This is the 1/4 inch tubing, and it's generally easier to put it on to the barb couplings if this is warm, so you can leave it out in the heat. What I like to do is just apply a little bit of heat with a lighter, depending on the season, or you can leave it out in the sun for a couple hours right before, and it makes it more pliable. It's easier to get it around. Don't overdo this. And this is effectively what we're looking like. I'm probably gonna have to go into more detail, make multiple videos. Soil and water is just so important. I can make so many videos on that. I could talk about that for hours. This one's already going long, so I'm gonna make a part 2. But I have them evenly spread. This will irrigate through the top. It goes side to side, like I said, with this soil. Then the mulch keeps it in. You can really calculate this to be as specific as you want it to be. I don't like wasting water. Stay tuned for part 2. Let's grow.